So what if they sign Burnes, and if they could talk Sasaki into coming to San
Now you're competing
Now
for
you're
a
talking.
championship. Now
There you
you're
go.
competing for a
There
championship.
you go.
And you're also more willing to trade Webb if you know you have 2 or 3 young pitchers that you really are confident about coming up. And I don't think the Giants have that. Maybe Birdsong, but I don't think they're very confident in Harrison coming off of last year. So yeah, if they had 3 studs coming up that they felt very good about, then you can move off of them and balance out the rest of the team.
And as I did hear before, you better, Buster, in my opinion, one of the biggest jobs of any leader of the baseball ops department is to really know your prospects and to be honest with yourself, to know who do you think can and can't, and can for a little while or a half a season, early in their career, whatever. You've got to be realistic with that, and that'll tell you the story to know what you have to do. I think it'd be exciting if they signed Burnes and got Sasaki to come that way.
Oh, absolutely. The place would be rocking. And I did listen to Bob Melvin today on MLB radio. He had a really different sound to him this year. He sounded much more excited about this season than he did toward the end of last year. I think he was really worn out. Buster's has come out and said, I want my manager making the lineup. There was a lot of talk that he was not really in charge, able to make the lineup. Melvin just sounded like refreshed, and I think it's going to be a different year around San Francisco. Melvin's a good manager, and he's going to be able to manage. And he talked about him meeting Buster, how he played against Buster for 10 or 11 years while he was the manager of the A's, and said, I never really talked to Buster. I respected him. He was a great player, great leader. But in talking to Buster, he said that he's on page being both of these guys catchers. He was a little nervous. Are we going to connect? And he says, it is nice talking to Buster. We're in the same philosophy, which is nice to hear.
That is great. It is great. And that he can manage, and nobody knows, what goes on when, because you're not in the room type of thing. But, if he feels more confident and more of a chance to show what he can do and his strengths, it's nothing but a positive for somebody as accomplished as Melvin is.
Yeah. Now, Ned, you've been to many of these winter meetings. Tell everybody listening, what's it like? You get in there when they start on a Sunday. Every team has their own meeting room. What are you doing during these 2.5, 3 days? I know you've got Rule 5 drafts. You've got other things that are happening at the end of the week. But are you meeting with agents? Are you discussing with your front office your plans? Tell us what it's like.
Well, you're trying to use your time as best you can, and GMs used to be in the lobby all the time. I'm not sure many GMs or president of baseball ops, whatever you want to title the top position, are in the lobby. The lobby is really for a lot of media. Your scouts work the lobby. Your scouts, you'll get there on Sunday and you'll have all your scouts there, and you'll assign teams to them, teams they know, other scouts that they know who work for those teams, and you send them on a fact-finding mission. And you'll meet with them probably, if you meet with them at 6 o'clock on Sunday, you'll meet with them again at probably 11 o'clock at night. What do you got? What are you hearing? What's going on? How legit is what you're hearing? Things along those lines. And then, in the morning, you start again, and you send your group out, and they come back at 11 or 12 o'clock, and they give you an update. And then they come back at 4 o'clock, and maybe you meet with the media from 4 to 5 or something like that. And you're ordering room service. You'll set records for club sandwiches most of the time, and be ordering room service and not really going out much. You have a chance to meet with your staff a lot and people and really kind of bring your group even closer together. And you till the soil. You try and figure out the agent situation and player situation and trade situation. Going in what has got a chance. Picture a football field. What's on the 10-yard line going in. What's on the 30. What's on the 50. you know what's on the other 10 and got miles to go. And that doesn't mean that you can't get that one done, but it may take you longer than Sunday to Thursday, right? And so, Thursday doesn't happen much. Sometimes you'll get a major announcement on the Thursday if that's a day of the Rule 5. You talk about the Rule 5, which gives players who've been in the system for a long time a chance to get a major league job someplace. If a team wants to bring them to the major leagues and keep them there all year, they draft them and they give them a chance and see where it goes. A lot of great players have actually ended up doing that. Santana, the great left-handed pitcher, was a Rule 5 guy. I think Clemente may have been a Rule 5 guy.
Yes, he was. He was with the Dodgers.
Yes. And, so you can find some talent there. But, a lot of it isn't that. And you'll pay a price to draft a player. And then you'll offer him back. If he's not going to stay with your big league club, you offer him back and you get half your money back if the team takes him back. Sometimes that way you can get him to the minor leagues. And you really, if it's Thursday morning, the Rule 5, you're probably about Wednesday afternoon getting your player development people and your amateur scouts in the room and trying to nail down who you might pick. Teams that have had great seasons and are picking late in the Rule 5 draft, you're taking a chance on players to begin with. The deeper you get in that draft, the harder it's going to be to find somebody that qualifies. And sometimes if a team is a good young team that hasn't won a lot and they're drafting high, that pick has value. So they can trade that pick, or they can, quote, sell the pick and pick up an extra $50,000 or something like that to help with whatever expenses they've got to maximize their positioning.
That actually happened a couple years ago. The Pittsburgh Pirates had Blake Sable.
Yep.
And Cincinnati picked him up in the Rule 5 draft, and they got him, and the Giants somehow got him through the trade, but he was still Rule 5, where the Giants had to keep him on the roster for the entire year.
Yep.
So that was interesting. I didn't realize that. You made an interesting point there, that they could actually trade them, that Rule 5 player.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, they can trade the pick.
Yeah, the pick. Oh, maybe that's what they did. They traded the pick.
Yeah.
Trading the players is a different.
Okay. Dynamic. Yeah, they traded the pick to the Giants. Cincinnati did. Okay.
Yep.
Ned, you mentioned one of the most important, if not the most important thing a GM and an organization, for that matter, needs to do is to know your prospects, know who's special, who is not. And the reason I ask this question is because one thing I'm very, very much in favor of, and I don't see organizations do it too much, is what the Braves did with Ronald Acuna, with what the Brewers did with Chourio. They understood that these kids were special. They were talented. And before they put together 3 or 4 dominant years and were going to cost the moon, they signed them to very, very respectable 10-year, $100 million, and Chourio, I believe, 8-year, $82 million. And they're going to take that. Their family and their agent are probably going to take that.
Yep.
And they're going to get 8 to 10 years out of these kids. A lot of them prime years for very, very reasonable prices. I'm wondering why more organizations do not do that.
Well, it's like Danny trying to trade everybody and sign everybody. You need a couple partners to do that.
Right.
You need the player and the agent to have an interest in that. And, it would be, I'm guessing it'd be pretty tough to get a Scott Boras client to do something like that.
Yeah.
True.
And because he's all about the system and the value of it, the value of arbitration, the value of free agency. You'll see very few players sign, in their walk year that are represented by Scott, because he believes in the process. So, you have to have other people that want to do that.
Right.
And you have to know your players. And, the Cleveland Indians, back when John Hart was running the team, did that a lot too. Signed a lot of players to multi-year deals before they were arbitration eligible. For 3 years, the team has got control of the money. And as long as you're over the minimum, players got really no leverage except to get another job and another career. So, but
just Just out of curiosity, is that allowed in hockey, Ned, or no?
Well, yeah, in hockey, you have a different situation. You have when a player turns pro, they sign an entry-level contract for 3 years.
Okay.
And then they're a restricted free agent. They're an RFA.
Mm.
And an RFA, teams can bid on them, but the team that signs them is going to pay that team a hefty price in picks and has the right to match the offer. You rarely see it. The St. Louis Blues did it this past year with 2 players from Edmonton, but you rarely see that. And then after that, they get more service time, actually more age and more time, and they're a UFA, which means that they're a free agent. They can go anywhere and sign anything. And if you're they do some very interesting things with it. If you are leaving your team, if you're going to another team as a UFA, I think you're limited to a 7-year contract. If you're re-signing with your team, you can get an 8-year contract. So they incentivize the players to stay where they are a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
And sometimes you'll see the sign and trade where the team that is trying to acquire the player and wants the player for the rest of the season, and then